Hello everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer this week. This is going to be the weekly astro weather for April 10th through the 17th. A mass majority of this video is going to be all about that super intense full moon in Libra that's coming on Saturday the 16th. But as always, we're going to be talking a little bit about the transits throughout the week just so you can kind of better prepare. Do me a favor, if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do so below. You're going to get alerted as to when I have new content coming out, as well as when I go live and I have other things that I'm putting out there. If you're not aware, I also have memberships. So if you want to support the channel, if you really appreciate these astro weather videos, the live videos, or any of the continuing education videos, do consider being a member. There's 3 different levels and it makes it possible for me to keep creating content for you guys. We've seen a lot of growth and I really appreciate all of the likes, the comments, the interaction that we're seeing on Beyond the Veil. The channel has more than doubled in the last year, and I'm hoping to reach my goal by the end of summer of 2022 to be able to create content for you guys every single day. So the more subscribers I get, the more donations, the easier it is for me to do that. Lots of stuff going on in the cosmos today. Let's go ahead and get into it and take a look. Obviously, the major highlight, kind of the clickbait that got you on this video is this full moon in Libra. But the truth is that there's a lot of other bigger transits that are taking place this week, and I don't want to steal their thunder either, as well as the fact that we are now well within about 3 weeks before we have an eclipse. Actually closer to 2 by the time this is coming out on my channel. So we are in eclipse Thunderdome. We usually start feeling eclipses anywhere from 3-4 weeks prior to the eclipse, and we can be feeling the effects afterwards. Eclipses do come in pairs, and I know you're like, Candice, this is the full moon in Libra. But I just want you guys to know that it's not purely just the fact that this is going to be some really intense transit setting up this week. It's that we're starting to feel the eclipses, but I've got you. I actually already put out the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus. It has already been posted on my channel. If you haven't seen that, take a look. I'm going to talk about how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs, my interpretation also of what that particular eclipse can bring, so that way you're better prepared. Wanted to make sure I got it out early. I'm working on the next one for Scorpio. Hopefully going to get that out in a week or so for you guys, so you guys have no excuses not to be prepared for the eclipses. So let's go ahead and start off with Sunday, April 10th. Well, today Mercury in Aries comes into a square with Pluto in Capricorn. Obviously, there can be some fierce exchanges in communication, power struggles, kind of speaking up for yourself against authority, bullies, anybody who's going to kind of be rubbing you the wrong way. This will be affecting everybody, but more so especially kind of the hot seat for the transits this week are definitely going to be the cardinal signs. So if you're an Aries or a Cancer or a Libra or a Capricorn, or if you have placement in the cardinal placements anywhere from, I would say, the better part of maybe like 27 degrees on is when you're really going to feel it. The intensity was actually building since about the 9th. So Saturday, Sunday, there's that kind of heated, intense exchange. We can also just do some kind of obsessive thoughts, people who are wanting to look into your private things. So there can definitely be more snooping and people kind of going through phones and getting really intense about how we just exchange information or how we communicate in general. So that kind of starts the week off already, Saturday going into Sunday with that intensity. Now, Monday the 11th, we've got Saturn in Aquarius coming into a square with the North and South node. The North node's in Taurus, helping us go towards a more stable, secure life, feeling safe, feeling like we have everything we need, more beauty, good food, comfort. So when a planet squares the nodes, it is basically saying that we must take the steps to release the past life. South node in Scorpio, so we're letting go of pain, fear, obsession, control, meltdowns, all the fun Scorpio kind of terms, to be able to level up and get to that North node in Taurus. So, just be mindful that, Sunday, Monday, days where there's a lot of feeling like you're drawing the line in the sand with what it is that you need, communicating your boundaries. It can get a little intense. There's a lot of Saturn, Pluto aspects happening. And I would say really pay attention if you're a fixed sign, because this is going to be taking place at 22 degrees. Now, Saturn's been hovering around here. I've done some videos about this, kind of talking about, especially in the horoscopes for April, how Venus, Mars, and all the conjunctions to Saturn square the nodes have played out karmically. And now it seems when Saturn comes into the square, especially at 22 degrees, we're drawing the line in the sand. But really, what is this about, right? Aquarius is the future. It is about committing to higher vibrations, committing to higher goals, committing to working as a team, friendships, and just being able to have more unity. But I really feel like this is about doing the work to step into our future selves, right? So future responsibility, think Saturn type themes, our obligation to the planet, to our friends, to our peers, our networks, our goals in general. So now that Saturn is getting up in degrees this year, we're definitely going to see lots of like global changes and shifts. And when we're dealing with the fixed signs, there can definitely be some rocks and rattles and rolls, especially when it comes to finances, money, security. So I'm anticipating that this square is the first process of what is likely going to be about 2 or 3 weeks leading into the first eclipse at the end of April, of realizing, oh my goodness, we've hit a roadblock. You know, we're blocked here. We can't move forward in some aspect. We're going to be challenged. We're going to see that through the square to the nodes, but also, you know, later going on into the transits, we'll see planets come into Taurus and square Saturn. So it's like this back and forth of, do we stand up and help the group? Do we focus on just our own personal needs and kind of feeling torn? Don't worry, we've already been working with this energy. It's nothing new. Check out the horoscopes if you want to know where it's taking place in your chart, or just look at where Aquarius is in your natal horoscope. Now, then on the 12th of the week, we are moving into Jupiter conjunct Neptune at 23 degrees. It's going to probably be something that is felt more emotionally this week, that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, one of the bigger transits of the year. I did a video talking about it, how it affects us spiritually, how it's going to affect us energetically, helping us dissolve old, outdated visions and dreams for the future, really allowing us to get closer to spirit, focus on prayer, focusing on our vibration, and willingly taking time to step back and really reflect on, what are my emotions saying, what are my goals, and what am I aligning myself with? So it's going to be a bit of a watery week, guys. That particular conjunction, it's going to be felt by everybody, especially because it's still in a trine to the south node. So collectively we're healing and we're learning to kind of come to terms with like emotions that maybe we weren't even aware were there. Spiritual health, mental health, physical health, you know, it can play out a number of different ways. But for the most part, 23 to me seems a little chaotic. So the fact that they're going to be at 23 together right when Jupiter comes into conjunction, and then we're going to see the next day they move to 24, but I'll get to that in a second. Now, also on the 12th, we're going to see the Sun in Aries sextiling Saturn in Aquarius. So I like that. It makes me feel like there's a conversation between what the goals are and what we're actually holding ourselves accountable for, what we're initiating, what we're taking responsibility, and kind of acting out in the world. So when Saturn and the Sun work together, there is a sense of like really fulfilling our destiny as long as we're playing by the rules or we're sticking to the plan. So just know that on the 12th, there can be a sense of like, okay, that's dissolving, that's falling apart. Okay, that's fine. We just keep it moving, stick to the plan, right? On the flip side, it can also be kind of like, oh, that fell apart, so what do I do? It's a day to tune in to your intuition, but still be proactive, guys. Remember, the Sun is in Aries. Now, like I said, on the 13th, so the next day, we actually see Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces come into conjunction, moves from 23, which is more of that kind of Aquarian, whoa, what is happening, to the more Piscean 24 degrees energy of dissolving. But then again, it's also pretty magical, right? This can be about really strong manifestational abilities, really strong dreams, intuitions. I think that we're going to start seeing like an uptick in really, really significant symbolic dreams, even though it's Aries season. Especially because it's still an aspect to the North Node. So we're dreaming about, thinking about more solid, kind of secure futures, whether that comes to our money, our food, our resources, our bodies. So something is kind of shifting. Really want to remind you guys that pretty much from here on out, from now through like, let's say the better part of June, we want to be focused on envisioning the life that we want to live. We want to embody it. We want to focus on believing it, visualizing it, manifesting it, meditating on it. And if you feel like things are coming in this week that's challenging your ability to feel these things, it's really important for you to acknowledge and sometimes go, that's not my reality. I'm not creating that. Be very mindful of what you're giving power to with the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction because it does magnify. So the positive side of Neptune is like, I believe it, I know because I've seen it in a dream, or I've prayed for it, or I know that Spirit's got my back. The more challenging side of this aspect can manifest as people being manic, having issues with depression, addiction, isolation, and the kind of lower kind of octave of that Neptunian, Piscean energy. So mental health, addiction, learning not to, I guess like, just unwind. You know, we can unwind and kind of spiral and find ourselves in a situation where we're avoiding dealing with things or hiding out, right? So we want to watch for that. And that will be really interesting. Just pay attention to the energies on the 12th and the 13th, where if you feel like something's breaking down, try to really tune into your emotions and ask yourself, well, obviously this is part of the plan. What am I learning from this? You know, where do I go from here? How can I really just hold the faith? Right now, it's all about holding the faith because remember, we have to believe it before we see it. So if the third dimensional world is not manifesting in what you know, you're hoping for, praying for, don't spiral out and go, oh, it's not working, I quit. Just stay the path and keep reminding yourself that Spirit has your back. It's very, very important this week. Now, then on the 14th of the week, we see the moon in Virgo. It's going to come into an opposition with Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. So what can I say about that? I mean, there is this feeling of adjusting. Whenever the moon opposes Neptune, we can kind of be like disassociative, or we don't know how to connect, or, you know, moon in Virgo is going to be very fixated on those processing of the emotions and the feelings, and not really sure if it's either safe or if it's the time to share with other people. It can have us a little bit in our feelings. It can have us really processing stuff. I'm liking the trine to Pluto. I think that's the saving grace. But I guess I would say all week, you know, the 14th really is going to be, I think, the easiest day all week long. That Mercury Pluto conjunction, Pluto square that we're seeing on Sunday the 10th is not ideal for communication or traveling. You're really going to see that Saturday and Sunday. Monday is kind of like a turning point where we have to draw the line in the sand. Tuesday and Wednesday, we're just kind of like out of it. And we're like, is this reality? What's going on right now? Why is this falling apart? And then Thursday is kind of reflecting on like, oh my God, it's been like a emotional whiplash week. So you got to take it where you can get it. And I would say Friday is definitely going to be one of the easier days, not the easiest, but easier. And that's not saying a lot because it's the day before the full moon, right? So as soon as that moon, the next day goes into Aries, or actually it'll be later in the day on the 14th, we're going to start feeling that full moon coming in, and we're also going to start feeling the moon coming into an opposition with Chiron. So that leads me to Friday the 15th. So on Friday the 15th, yes, the moon's in Libra. We're coming into the full moon energy. Honestly, I am already feeling it right now, which is why I was like, oh, I got to get the video out, got to do it. And it just so happened to be better for my schedule, but I really realized looking at some of the aspects, I was like, it's going to be crunch time next week. Smarter just to do it now. But Friday on the 15th, you're going to see the moon come into an opposition with Chiron, emotional wounding, being aware of that. Full moon energy is in full swing. And here we go, Saturday the 16th, we are going to have this full moon in Libra. We'll do the whole bit in just a second. I just want to talk to you guys a little bit first about Sunday the 17th. Now, you're going to get an astro weather on Sunday, but I felt like it's important to tell you that on Sunday the 17th, right on the heels of this full moon, we've got Mercury in Taurus, okay? And it's sextiling Venus in Pisces. So it's this opportunity to kind of stabilize how we're communicating our values. With the sextile to Venus in Pisces, we can smooth some stuff over. We can kind of put the bandage on the wounds. We can regroup after, you know, whatever has gone on during the kind of chaotic full moon. But that same day on the 17th, Mercury in Taurus comes into conjunction with Uranus. So it's like, you know, kind of firing on all cylinders. We can be a little mentally frazzled. There can be sudden, emails, conversations, phone calls. I'm wondering if the Venus sextile Mercury will kind of soften the blow. Like, what if there is like a blow up fight or something that happens as a result of the Libra full moon? I think it's very likely for a lot of people. We have the opportunity to kind of have a turning point the next day on Sunday, and I do think that that can be a whole opportunity to call somebody or reach out to somebody and be like, hey, I'm sorry, you know, I overreacted and I shouldn't have acted that way, and I just want to apologize. So just so you guys know, there can be some frantic communication right around the time of the full moon. The next day is definitely a better day for making up. The transits will get easier towards the end of April when Venus comes into conjunction with Jupiter and Neptune. But I think there's a bigger purpose going on here with this full moon. I've been sitting with it, thinking about it a lot. Just to me, I was like, there's something else going on here. Like, in the back of my mind, I kept going like, you need to dig deeper and do more than just the whole this aspect, that aspect thing. That there's a bigger picture. So I kind of played astrological detective. I've played around with this lunation for about 2 days, and I have dug a whole bunch of stuff up. Very Pluto, right? So if you're somebody who likes to learn about astrology, if you would like to pull your chart out, go ahead and pull your chart out, because I want to kind of paint a picture and I want to talk to you guys about an ongoing storyline really since about December of 2021. So we're going to talk a lot about where Libra, Capricorn, and Aries are in your chart. Yes, I know it's a full moon in Libra, so it's going to be really highlighting Libra, but a full moon brings up the polarity between two signs, and we need both, right? It gives us some kind of yin-yang complementary aspect. So Libra and Aries, they need each other. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But I'm going to talk about Capricorn because this full moon is going to square Pluto in Capricorn. And in my opinion, I love Pluto, but he's the fucking villain during this full moon. So I can't really, in my good conscience, just tell you guys, oh, just look at your full moon, you know, placement. Just look at Libra, you're fine. That's not really how this is going to work. So I'm going to show you how astrology can work better for you. On the 16th of April, it'll be at 10:55 a.m. Pacific time, 2:55 p.m. Eastern time. Please check your time zones accordingly. I know we got people all over the place, but let me tell you something. You're going to look around mid-month, midweek, and you're going to be like, something's happening here, and it's the build-up to this full moon. So, themes for full moon in Libra generally, okay? I'm not even getting into the aspects yet. It's an interesting dynamic. I would have to tell you that as an astrologer, I feel like I see more breakups happening during a full moon in Libra than most times. Breakups, friend separations, you know, business separations, things like that. I just noticed that. And it makes sense, right? Because when we have the sun in Aries, the earth is in Libra. So the sun is highlighting what are we initiating, what are we taking responsibility for, what's best for us. It's still Aries season, so it's still the new year. We're still kind of getting our new feelers into this new energy and trying to figure out what our purpose is, what we're here to achieve on a personal level. And when we see the sun go through Aries, the earth is in Libra, right? That's just how it works. So really, we can only be the best versions of ourselves in order to be fully functional in a relationship. Regardless of the relationship, we have to really be in good relationship and good balance with ourselves so we can show up and do the same thing for other people. So I feel like this is a moon in general where you see that polarity more, right? And also, like, it's April now, right? You think, you know, we're out of like cuffing season. It's no longer like the holidays through Valentine's Day. Maybe that's part of it, that there's this natural kind of like, okay, I've been dealing with somebody's, you know, crap since like fall, so I think I'm good. Maybe it's time for a break. So in general, we just see that emphasis of like kind of a make or break situation in some relationships during this time, not abnormal. But because this is a full moon that is in the late degrees of Libra, it is going to be global. How are we working together? What is our partnerships like with other people? How are we getting along with other people out in the world? It's not just you and me and our daily routine and our life and my friends and my family. It's everybody, the world at large. So everybody's going to be feeling this energy. And it's going to square Pluto. And I think that this is possibly like a full moon that can very easily be underestimated. That's why I'm kind of being really honest with you guys about it. You know, I'm not like a sensationalized astrologer. I'm not going to tell you guys something unless I really think it's going to happen. And I have a lot of facts that I'm going to give you guys with midpoints that's going to back up a lot of the stuff that I'm saying. So I'm actually anticipating that this is a full moon that's going to be very difficult to keep the peace. It's going to be very difficult to be pleasant. And when I think about Libra in general, you know, air sign, right? It's about communication. It is a masculine energy. People always get surprised when they learn that because when we look at just the energies, both Aries and Libra are, you know, they're external. Their energy is very yang, right? So it's linear. They're just active. And although Libra can be the more feminine energy of that, it's still a masculine sign. So people underestimate that energy. I don't think that they realize that just because Venus is associated with marriage and relationships and partnerships, that Libra is possibly this very kind of like iron fist, velvet glove type of energy. So some themes that I have kind of picked up for this is obviously relationship challenges. I kind of get the feeling that it can be do or die in some situations. Finding it difficult to find the balance in relationships, power struggles, especially in values and steps moving forward, actually executing things to be able to reach the desired goals together, right? But the problem is that both the sun and the moon, so the sun in Aries, consciously what I'm doing, versus the moon, which is everybody else or my partner or my boss or my wife, is in an opposition. So we're already seeing the polarity between the two. It's peaking because it's a full moon, but it's squaring Pluto, which says it's almost like there is some real toxic, difficult power struggles, negative, fearful, mean, old habits that are unwilling to die, right? That is actually creating friction that is keeping the sun and the moon from uniting. And that's not enough for me to say like, oh, this is gnarly. The midpoints are really what did it for me. And I'll get into that in a second. But, you know, Libra has this reputation for being like the peacemaker, the mediator. And while that can be true, Libra does have the ability to kind of detach and be able to unify and bring two sides together. I think what we're really going to see is that with the square to Pluto, Libra is going to have to kind of take a little bit of a different angle in this, or that energy of the moon, where sometimes fairness and balance can't necessarily be reached by both parties. So there is this sense of being threatened with some kind of power struggle, and then Libra's going to have to step up and go, no, I'm going to check you. That doesn't work for me. So Libra does have the ability to be like judge and jury. That's not unusual for this sign. But I'm anticipating it's going to be some make or break moments for relationships in general. Anybody who has cardinal placements from 26 to 29 degrees. So if you're in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, if you have a sun, moon, or rising in the late degrees of your sign, watch out, duck and take cover, put a helmet on. This to me, it's funny. Even when I was working on this, I had flashbacks and I was like, 2020, like it reminds me of all of the squares that manifested in 2020 when we had a ton of planets that were, you know, in Capricorn. And whenever we saw, for example, if you think back to the Mars retrograde in Aries that was going on late summer, early fall, and the squares that were happening, and it was very kind of make or break moments in relationships. So like I said, I kind of got flashbacks and I was like, oh my God, here we go again. So those of you guys who have cardinal placements, you know exactly what I'm talking about when you felt like there was some sense of having to defend yourself, defend your honor, defend your relationships, defend your power, and stand up to certain situations that were quite scary in your life, right? Pluto. So let me get into now what I have noticed about this. And this is where I was like, something else is going on here. And I started kind of connecting the dots. So I decided to bust out my list of midpoints. I don't usually talk about midpoints. I'll talk about them sometimes in a reading if it's something that comes up that's really prominent. Basically, I ran my midpoint list and I was looking for anything that was going to bring up Pluto or Venus, because this is a full moon in Libra. So Venus is very important in this placement. And we'll talk about why there is some sweet and sour aspects. But upon my research, and I knew, because anytime I go looking for something, I find something, I found some major stuff. So the midpoints that I noted is that the sun in Aries during this full moon, which is important, right? Because the moon is opposing the sun, at 26 degrees of Aries is the Mercury Chiron midpoint currently. Now you might look at me and go like, are you speaking Latin? What does this mean? Let me break it down for you. A midpoint is going to give me the degree of something that's getting triggered that stands between two other planets, if that makes sense. So the sun's in Aries, which is representing our own vitality, our energy, our own actions, our own ego. And then we've got Chiron, which is also in Aries. And the fact that the current Mercury Chiron midpoint, so we've got Mercury in Taurus, we've got Chiron in Aries, sun at 26 degrees is the midpoint between the two. And I was like, aha. So what I'm getting at is when this particular Mercury Chiron midpoint gets triggered by a planet in transit or in a natal chart, things happen, right? And so midpoints are like these like magical little calculations that not everybody is aware of, and it really can take your astrology to the next level. I really recommend it, but you'll go down a rabbit hole. The Mercury Chiron midpoint definition is hurt or painful words, communication, acting out, blowing the top off. That's literally what it means. So the fact that it's getting activated by the sun in Chiron, the sun in Aries, literally tells me that there's going to be some really explosive situations that are going to happen during this full moon. And it's going to be because of the things that shoot out of people's mouths very quickly with Mercury conjunct Uranus. So it's going to be like, I'm nervous, I'm stressed out, I'm tense, this is how I feel, word vomit, and then it's going to create relational issues. That's not the only one. Then I went looking for anything that is going to be in aspect to Venus or maybe even Pluto. I mean, you could say that one of the midpoints between the sun and the moon very obviously is Pluto. The sun-moon midpoint in this situation, it's within a degree. It's 28 degrees of Capricorn. So that in itself is pretty big. That's basically saying stuff's changing, baby. When Pluto activates the sun-moon midpoint, it is major death and rebirth and transformations of whatever the theme is, in terms of the axis of the sign. So Libra and Aries is, me versus you, what I do, what we do. So the fact that Pluto's getting activated is already kind of saying, oh, he's going to break some stuff up. But there's another one. Venus in Pisces, which is, I think, very important because this is a full moon in Libra. So it's all about Venus. And a lot of people you're going to hear are going to go, oh, it's Venus in Pisces. It's so magical. Yeah, okay, there's some truth there. But Venus in Pisces is exactly on the Sun-Pluto midpoint. What? So Sun's at 26 of Aries, Pluto's at 28 of Capricorn. The midpoint is 12 degrees of Pisces. So what happens when Venus activates the Sun-Pluto midpoint? Battles of will in a relationship. Two people may be at odds about what each finds important in life, being attracted to people with extreme self-confidence or people who have a lack of confidence, which they compensate for by attempting to dominate another person. Intense willfulness when it comes to fulfilling one's desires and getting what one wants. So, there's more. So that in itself already has me a little like, okay, there's going to be some stuff that's going on, just in terms of people who are willing to do whatever it takes in order to get their way in a relationship. There can be some extreme stuff going on. We're definitely going to see some battles of the sexes, and it's not because of the sun-moon opposition. It's this midpoint. One more. I spoke about Pluto being one of the midpoints between the sun and the moon, right? And some may argue, okay, it could also be 29 degrees of Cancer, sure, but actually I find it closer to being 28 of Capricorn. But that 28 degrees of Capricorn is the same degree, 27, 28, of where we saw the Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrograde. So I want you guys to go back and think about what was happening, you know, December, January, February, right? Venus went retrograde, it conjunct Pluto. There was these huge epiphanies about our resources and our values and what we're changing, especially when it comes to our legacy and what we're doing with our career or our responsibility in love or relationships. We saw Mercury go retrograde over that degree, which was bringing that theme up again. And then we saw Mars and Venus conjunct Pluto at the very beginning of March. So there is a story that's been going on in our lives since the better part of the end of December, where there has been a back and forth struggle, fear of letting go, of releasing, of healing painful situations, dealing with skeletons in our closet, bullies, things that are really kind of like this do or die energy. The last degrees of Capricorn can be particularly difficult. And now we have that being activated both in the square, but when I looked at this a couple different times on my software for where I live in Nevada, it came up with the point of fortune very close to that. So I was like, oh, obviously the point of fortune is going to be different in different places, but the fact that it came up on my software exactly conjunct Pluto, I was like, that's what really brought my attention to that square between the sun and the moon. That's what made me really dig deeper and go, okay, there's something going on here somehow connected to that 27, 28 degrees. So I want to read you guys the Sabian symbol for that. And technically Pluto's at 28 and it, 28, 27, 28, you could read either or. I'm going to read 28 because that's where the point of fortune was. And it's 27 and change. So the point of fortune for me was conjunct Pluto, square the moon and the sun. So Sabian symbols, screen of prophecy. Capricorn 27 is a mountain pilgrimage, taking the high road. The symbol speaks to the vision and the perception of higher reality. The image of a mountain pilgrimage symbolizes a spiritual journey and a quest for understanding and enlightenment, and it dramatizes determination of a man to comprehend the ultimate purpose and the meaning of life. The emphasis here is on the importance of not giving up on the goal before it has reached or the dream has been fulfilled. So at its highest, it symbolizes aspiration, devotion, notable goals, and the focus is on endurance, basically, and not quitting just because you feel like your goals are too high, okay? But Capricorn 28 is a large aviary or community. The theme is networking. So the symbol speaks to a large variety of interests, the need to coordinate efforts so that each activity facilitates and supports others. The image is of a large aviary or a place for keeping many birds confined, symbolizes harmony, fellowship, and aspiration. The implication of diversity suggests the ability of many resources or talents and skills that can be utilized for problem solving. In simple terms, what one individual doesn't know or have, another usually will. On a practical level, the fact that the birds are confined suggests restraint or taming of wild impulses. It also alludes to the expression of birds of a feather flock together, implying a community of interest or common bond. So at its highest, it represents dedication, personal resources, accomplishment of group objectives, but it's warning against trying to force unwanted actions or attention on others. So it's on social activities. Things can feel a little hectic trying to coordinate with different people. And it just reminds you to stay unified, focus on groups, fellowships, harmony, happiness, community interests, and common bonds. So it's interesting that Pluto is saying this is what we must do, right? We have to change and transform so we can do this. And while I do think Pluto is the villain in this lunation, he's also speaking to both the sun and the moon. And speaking to the sun and the moon, he's speaking to the divine masculine and divine feminine. He's basically saying, look, if you happen to be in a relationship or a dynamic where it feels like there's a masculine and a feminine kind of like connection or counterpart, right? Think like husband and wives, for example. Both parties are likely not to see eye to eye. And I think Pluto is basically coming in and saying like, look, you guys both have common goals that you want to achieve. However, things need to change and transform in order for this to really happen so we can find balance and everybody can be happy. And trying to force things, or kind of going back to that Sun-Pluto midpoint, feeling like there's a battle of wills where people are at odds and trying to force each other into extremes, or, you know, I think possibly going to what might be some not so pleasant lengths to try to manipulate or coerce or convince people to do things also just doesn't set right with the whole thing. So with that being said, let's get into the specific aspects, and then I'm going to talk about what's going to be happening for each and every one of the 12 signs. So that way you guys know what's up, you know what's coming. You know, I'll tell you, Libra is an air sign. It is the energy of communication, but also knowing when to detach and knowing that sometimes a little bit of separation can actually allow things to kind of calm down before coming together. So when I think of like a full moon in a square to Pluto, it's like, you know, counting to 10, taking space if you need to, not blowing the situation out of proportion, breath work, Tai Chi, breathing, and going for a walk and really getting some perspective maybe from another person before coming back to the table and talking about what's been bothering you. Incense or anything that you can work with the element of air to kind of smooth things out. I would really recommend sandalwood or rose. I think that can be really helpful in just kind of calming things down. Sandalwood's great whether you have like a diffuser or you want to work with that as an essential oil or a candle or an incense. It'll just diffuse arguments and confrontations in the home. Rose can very much do the same thing as well. So the aspects for this moon, obviously we have the sun in Aries in opposition to the moon in Libra. This is our once every 28, 29 day cycle, our full moon. We are wrapping up things that we have been working on and working towards really since the better part of fall of 2021, excuse me. I'm still terrified of 2020. Can you guys tell? I'm like shell shocked still. So we see this opposition, and I think it's fascinating that the ruler of both the sun and the moon, so the sun's in Aries, the moon is in Libra, Mars and Venus are both in Pisces. So it's telling me that collectively we are responding to something that's going on globally. Pisces is everywhere. And that there are frequencies and energies that are beyond us, that are either in the cosmos or what have you, that's affecting us. Now, usually, like, you know, Mars and Venus moving close together, it's pretty positive. Venus being in Pisces is pretty lovely. I think what it's saying is that there can be like a lot of like psychic debris or a lot of anxiousness or anxiety, you know, for Aries. That's 12 houses away from Aries. So we can see a lot of masculine energy or men that are like, I feel like something's up, but like my partner's not saying anything to me. And then from Libra, you know, these stelliums of planets in Pisces are 6 houses away. So it's about this feeling of like some energies for the feminine might be like, I don't know if this is really working for me, or this isn't healthy, or this doesn't work for my schedule, or like, I don't know if this is going to pan out. So both energies, masculine and feminine, regardless of your gender, is going to feel this very strongly. The sun and moon are in a square to Pluto. So moon square Pluto obviously is some really emotional kind of turbulence of like this feeling of emotions kind of boiling over and getting to a point where you feel like you have to act. And I think the moon in Libra is bringing up, well, you know, maybe we need to make a definitive decision about the relationship. You know, maybe we need to either move forward and decide that we're committing more seriously, or maybe we need to go our separate ways. That's what we start to see when we're leaving the Libra mansion and we're heading for Scorpio. There is just massive change. You either merge or you let go. The sun square Pluto is also basically saying something needs to be removed from the picture. There is this sense of like, you know, like I said, we would get into about mid-April and start noticing that with the sun square Pluto, it's like we're dealing with things that have been looming over our heads and power struggles that have been going on for some time. So it's going to be very hard for everybody to keep their cool and not be expressing things that they have been internalizing and holding on to, and they could pop. The moon in Libra is in a trine to Saturn in Aquarius. So that does at least tell me like, hey, in order to better partner, we need to be able to emotionally relate to what's best for everything all around. I would say for people who are coupled and having issues in your relationship, a nice way to diffuse this is like, I'm going out with my friends for the night. I need a little bit of space. That might be something that can really help. And it can diffuse the situation, or calling a friend or aligning with somebody who's been through a similar situation and calling them and talking to them. That can be really helpful, or just joining groups and associations that are going to make you feel supported. So much of what we're learning through the Saturn and Aquarius transit is that there is a variation of different kinds of love. It's not all about romantic trauma drama and back and forth with our romantic partners. There's love of groups, love of hobbies, love of friendships. It doesn't always have to be this romantic love, right? Then we have Venus in Pisces sextiling Mercury. So like I said, it is setting up for like the makeup conversation, or, hey, you know, that came out of my mouth and I'm sorry that I blew up, but, you know, let's talk about it so we can actually clear the debris. That's really why this is happening, guys. Now, while it's making the sextile to Mercury, Mercury's still conjunct Uranus. So there's some sparklers going on here. It's not just the cardinal signs that are going to feel it. If you are a Scorpio or a Taurus, sun or moon or rising, you're really going to feel this. Aquarius will feel it as well. So will Leo. But I think that those who have planets on the Taurus Scorpio axis, watch your words. Then we've got Venus in Pisces. Venus is coming into a square with Ceres. And the more that I sat and I thought about this, you know, I feel like this is about grief and fear and loss, and feeling like we're afraid of losing someone or something. And we could see situations where people are using communication in a manipulative manner to get their way, right? So we want to be careful for that. Mercury conjunct Uranus and Taurus is just fireworks in terms of ideas. It can be a day where you have an epiphany, or you have a conversation that sparks something and it just makes you realize like, okay, this has got to change, or my values are shifting in some way. We are, like I said, coming into eclipse season. So guys, this is periods of time where like big make or break things happen in general. So it's not purely just linked to this moon. We've also got Saturn in Aquarius with a sextile with the sun in Aries. I'm liking that. We're starting to lose it as the week goes on, but I would say it's really helpful for just reminding ourselves of our goals and staying in our lane and what's important to us and what our long-term goals are, so we can actually better show up, not just for ourselves, but also for the world at large. Now, Jupiter and Neptune will be in a conjunction exact at 24 degrees of Pisces. Wowzers, that is very emotional. It's in a slight sextile to the North Node, so it's almost like there can be a sense of like dreams and things coming true, but there can also be this feeling of like, if things aren't panning out the way that we thought, we have to let it go. When in doubt, pray, ask for guidance is what I would tell you. Meditate, turn inward, take some time alone in nature or by water, or be paying attention to what your intuition is telling you. And then we've got Jupiter and Neptune in a trine with the South Node in Scorpio. So we're releasing, we're letting go. I want to show you guys something. When this full moon is over, and this is more, I'll more get into this in the astro weather next week, but when this full moon is over, we're going to see then the next day on the 17th, the moon goes into Scorpio, it's going to oppose Mercury and Uranus, and then on the 18th, it's going to square Saturn. Guys, the sun squares Pluto as well. It's like there is something really big changing, and we have to take action. When we see squares between the moon, the sun, Pluto, and cardinal signs, it's, you know, you're doing this. This is how it makes me feel. It doesn't make me feel good. So we either change and transform it, or we're done. And there are going to be things that are going to happen that will be make or break. And it's setting us up for actually the next couple lunations. Watch your words, be mindful, don't let fear run the show. And I would really encourage you guys to just reflect on what's gone on with this Pluto journey that we've had, with the Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, what's been looming, what toxic, difficult situation has been playing out for you since December that you're finally ready to set free, right? That's what I want to know. The good news is we're going to talk about all the 12 signs. I'm going to tell you guys where this full moon is taking place, what house it's in, because that's where you're definitely going to see some action. I'm going to tell you what house Pluto is in, and I'm going to tell you that that's where the dirty little monster is going to show up, and it's going to create the conflict, okay? So listen for your rising sun and moon sign. This is Western perspective. So I'm a Western astrologer. For the sake of this, we're going to use whole signs. If you resonate with Placidus, totally fine. I don't blame you. So do I. And if you resonate with progressed, you can also listen to your progressed placements as well. Choose your own adventure, guys. That's how it works. Okay, so let's get into it. So for Aries and Aries rising, you have a full moon happening in your 7th house of relationships. So everything I've said to you, you're probably like, yes, preach. So you get it. I don't need to drive it home anymore. In your situation, the sun in your sign in your 1st house is highlighting what your needs are. The full moon taking place in your 7th house, I think, is just kind of highlighting you and relationships, how you're relating better to other people. Full moons are a bit interesting because the moon rules your 4th house. So it is bringing up this change between you, work, relationships, and it just all gets dinged, basically, home as well. This is a time that you want to be paying attention, Aries, because Pluto is actually hanging out in your 10th house. So that tells me that there can be some strife that you're having in a relationship because of a work responsibility, a parenting responsibility. It can also be about a parent, or, you know, maybe your partner's getting on your case about the fact that you're working too much, your boss is keeping you late, you're stressed out about your responsibilities, and there in turn, it's creating some strife. Now, the sun is in your sign right now, so watching it come into the opposition with the moon square Pluto, some of these things can be taking place for your partner as well, so it can be vice versa. It can be you being like, hey, I need you, and you know, you're out to lunch at work, and there's all this stuff going on, and the house is a mess, and I need help with the kids and grandpa, that kind of stuff. But I also feel like the 10th house deals with your public status. So this can also be like a real definitive moment for you in regards to also having a make or break situation, whether or not you leave a boss or a job high and dry, whether or not you realize that, you know, your responsibilities at work is actually interfering with your relationship and your family. There's also a possibility that, you know, your partner is just sitting down and basically saying to you, either you change this, or I don't know if this is going to work for me. Okay, so that's the square to Pluto in your 10th house. Be mindful, Aries, it is real right now. I know you feel like hiding under a rock, but you have to really show up and not be afraid to make change. The card that I get is the 10 of Wands. So heavy load, you know, too many burdens, feeling kind of bogged down, struggling, feeling burnt out. If you're an Aries or an Aries rising who's been going through this situation, this can be the turning point where if you've been reluctant to make these changes, you know, your relationship dynamics or issues with relationships can really start getting your attention. And that could be that push that's like, hey, like, I need you here. But it can also be stressed out, being exhausted, and just feeling like there's so much duty and obligation that's on your plate right now. The good news is that this is a 10, so it does promise that it's wrapping up and that this is going to be completing and giving you the opportunity to kind of go, you know what, not my responsibility. It's not worth risking important relationships over, okay? So for Taurus and Taurus rising, this is a full moon taking place in your natal 6th house. So what is your 6th house? Health, it's your daily routine, it's your schedule, it's your pets. It also deals very specifically with the balance in your schedule and your routine with a partner, right? 6th house Libra. So it makes me feel like you're having to kind of get on track with having a schedule with another person. And the sun's moving through your 12th house. You're wanting to retreat. You're kind of feeling a little bit in your head. There is a sense of either needing to show up to support a partner with a health issue or a crisis or a problem with a pet or an issue with their schedule, right? And there's some kind of issue or block because you've also got the square to Pluto, which is in your natal 9th house. So some Tauruses, and this can, I mean, these are really kind of broad, some of these perspectives, but any of those things could apply. You know, you got a lot of work on your plate, your partner gets sick, you got to kind of scale back and help take care of them. Boom, that's the full moon in the 6th house. You could be in a situation where you need to assist somebody at work and there's some kind of conflict with potential travel plans. I get a little weary when I see full moons in the 6th square Pluto in the 9th. That does tell me some Tauruses are realizing that they have to end a relationship and they have to go the legal route, and they're going to have to get divorced, or they're going to have to hire an attorney or somebody who can help them sort through some kind of legal issue or legal problem. And I would say that this is about really changing and transforming your beliefs when it comes to your schedule, and it's about you not hiding out, Taurus. It is right before your birthday, so I know that things get a little dicey, always a couple weeks before your birthday. I know there's eclipses coming for you, but I feel inclined to tell you that something is not right with the balance of either a relationship, a coworker, or something that's going on with your schedule, and like it's going to create some real challenges, either for you in terms of challenging your beliefs legally or some issues with travel plans. The card that I get is Temperance. Thank God. So balance, harmony, you know, allowing everything to kind of come together, finding more time for rest and recuperation. Certainly the sun going through your 12th house, you need some healing, or you need the ability or opportunity to take a little bit of a break from work. If you're a Taurus who's having a full moon in your 6th house and you're like, I'm not partnered, but I'm not feeling so hot, I'm feeling sick, or I'm struggling, this is saying you need healing, you need balance, you need to take time. Allow things to kind of come as they may. Rushing the process is only going to make things harder. Moderation, peace, calmness, and tranquility. So you might feel like there's a little bit of chaos going on around you and you just need some peace. For Gemini and Gemini rising, this is a full moon in a sister sign, and it's in your natal 5th house. So this can be big things going on in regards to your love life, your creative life. If you're self-employed, it can be a time where you're talking about children, spending more time with children. You find out that a partner is pregnant, Libra in the 5th. The sun's in the 11th house. So actually these are both really positive energies for you. I think it's the square that's happening to Pluto in your 8th house. And there's this sense of either being in a situation where if you're not being completely honest and being completely faithful, it's like the truth is unveiled, because the square to Pluto can be other people finding out if you're not being faithful. On the flip side, it could also be that there's like insurance or intimacy issues or things coming up where you're like, oh my God, you're pregnant, this is amazing, but we got to figure out insurance and how are we going to do this because you're working, and that stuff can come up. I think a full moon in your 5th house square your 8th is just really highlighting the vulnerability that comes with talking about joint resources, talking about investments, talking about merging and coming together, and really be willing to like kill off all those old ghosts from your past that keep you from wanting to be vulnerable and wanting to share with somebody else, whether that's emotionally or in terms of your finances or your resources. It can put you in a situation where I would say be careful with gambling or anything that's you know, getting anything like risky going on with money or resources. If you're like, I'm just going to take out a loan to pay this and then do this, it's like you can find yourself in a really nasty web if you're not careful. And I would watch what you're spending in general. So let's see what the cards say for you, Gemini. The Death card. Well, I mean, Pluto, high, god of the underworld, and it's squaring your 8th house. It's saying something has to change. And likely it's something that's uncomfortable or you don't want to deal with, or it's something that you don't want to acknowledge. And it's something that needs to be acknowledged and kind of like healed and then put to rest. So, you know, when the Death card comes up, it's saying like, you know, with this potential change and transformation, there can be new beginnings, but it's having to face your fears. And it can be intimacy issues revolving around, you know, like I said, just talking about your resources, your finances, psychological triggers, things like that. So just be mindful that the Death card can go one of two ways. If you lean into the change and you acknowledge that it's a necessary part of life, especially if it's dealing with debts, that this is something that really needs to be dealt with. For Cancer and Cancer rising, this is a full moon taking place in Libra in your natal 4th house. Okay, Cancer, put your big boy and girl pants on for me, please, because this is definitely going to be a very climactic energy for you. You know, you've been going through the retrogrades and stuff in your house of relationships. It's been really challenging your relationship with yourself and other people. I think a full moon in the 4th house is really highlighting how you've been feeling, what you've been not sharing with other people what your private life has been like, what you've been dealing with emotionally with your family or at home with your partner. There can be a lot of conflict that comes up actually with this full moon between either relatives in a relationship or family members finding out that a partner's not treating you very well, or family reacting to a possible separation, or there being some like real blowouts that have gone on, and then finally you tell your family this is what's happened. And be mindful, it can create some real strife in your relationships with your family or a parent and your partner. So you're gonna feel like there's no way that you can win. Now, if you're not partnered, I would just say be mindful of everything going on right now. There is this sense of clearing out old emotional patterns from relationship past and putting old emotional patterns that are toxic to rest, so you're not carrying that into new relationships. But relating with people in general seems like it's going to be a little dicey. This full moon is on your 4th house, 10th house axis, and it's squaring Pluto. So somehow a partnership or a work partnership, or even somebody who kind of is toxic and comes in and out of your life, they're threatening your emotional foundation. They're threatening your ability to feel like you're in control. And I would say if you've been tangoing with, it's now going to start to really peak. And if you have been sharing with your clan or inner world all of the things that have been going on, you might have some family members that are like, we don't want to hear about it, just end it already, or we don't want him coming over to the house, or just be careful. All right, so let's see what the cards say for you. The Devil. The cards said it, not me. If you are in a relationship, if it is with a Capricorn, if it is with somebody who's Saturn based, if you have been dealing with all of this garbage that has been almost like a relationship or like a really bad habit or a really bad interaction with somebody that you can't quit, this is basically saying to you, like, you are bound in this situation. Literally toxic energies, obsessions. It can be people dealing with addictions or people who are trying to control or manipulate you. This is going to be highlighted. You're going to see it come into play. And it's going to be a moment where you can look at this and go, I don't know if I want to be bound to this anymore, to this person, this relationship, this working partnership, this dynamic. I don't know if I'm willing to sell my soul for this. I don't know if I'm willing to trade my inner emotional peace or my family or my home just to have this person in my life. As much as I hate to say it, this is very accurate. And for those of you guys who are not partnered, it can be like a business partner. It can be just also, I look at the 7th house as being like counselors or people who have managed you or kind of supported you or kind of represented you, that those relationships are coming to an end. For Leo and Leo rising, we've got a full moon in Libra happening in your natal 3rd house. Now, it is highlighting relationship communication, right? Text messages, phone calls, meetings, short distance trips. And it's coming into a square with Pluto in your 6th house. So there seems to be scheduling issues, either in like you taking off time for work and like maybe you want to go somewhere with a friend or with a partner and like work's like no. Maybe you're learning to kind of communicate in a more therapeutic sense what hasn't worked in relationships, so you can kind of share your insight from a therapy session or a reading or whatever with your partner about what hasn't been working. There can be issues with the squares from the 3rd to the 6th and like whether or not you are going to be traveling with a partner, if they're willing to come with you, if they give you like an ultimatum and they're like, if you travel without me, this is what happens, I'm done. Something like that can happen. I would also be mindful and just be on high alert that you may have like a evaluation coming up for you work-wise, and it's really important for you to like show up and have your game face on this month. It's not a good time to be like calling in sick to work so you can like go on a vacation with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, because you will be reprimanded for this down the road if you don't like properly take time off. But I think that a full moon in the 3rd house in Libra with Venus in your 8th right now is like learning to basically like talk about what you've been reflecting on. And if you're going to therapy or if you're enjoying therapy or if you're feeling like you're learning something about your patterns and your habits, you can better share that with other people at work, and you can get help if you need help, so you can finally kick a bad habit or a bad health habit or food habit as well. So we've got Judgment. So, I mean, I got this feeling very strongly that like, because of the Mercury conjunction with Uranus in your 10th, that it may not be a time to get frazzled because of you receiving constructive criticism. It's not a time, like I said, to be like letting some of your personal life stuff or your own health or addiction issues be really clouding or affecting how you are at work. like, because judgment will happen. So people are going to be like judging you or looking at how you're behaving, and like there's going to be reprimandation for your behavior. So I know that it's not been an easy last couple of months, but now is not the time to drop the ball. Okay. And it's really important that if you do need to go somewhere, travel, get out of work, whatever, you're communicating, you're going about it in the proper way. You're also thinking things through, and you're thinking through the consequences, which is really interesting because the sun's in your 9th house. So I could see that as like the legal consequences. It could be the spiritual consequences, the whatever, as a result of how you communicate or not communicate well with other people, especially documents, phone calls, meetings. This seems to be really important. So it looks like there's a big decision that's getting ready to be made, either about you and your behavior at work, or making a big decision about whether or not you can actually talk through your issues that you might be having with somebody, and getting on the same page with your scheduling so that way you can see somebody more often. For Virgo and Virgo rising, you've got a full moon in your 2nd house, which is all about money, resources, and self-esteem. So usually there's big things going on with finances, big things going on with purchases, your purchasing power, your self-esteem, your natural talent. Now, this is squaring Pluto in your 5th house. So there's a lot of you possibly still going through the motions of like doubting yourself and doubting whether or not you're worthy of love, or good enough for love, or capable of opening your heart to somebody. If you really value or want somebody, and if you're truly in love with them, or if you feel like it's just for security. This is an interesting place to have the square. I think the full moon in your 2nd house is really setting up, helping you build your self-worth and knowing what your worth is, and not willing to accept any less than what you deserve. So it can be this turning point where you're like, actually, I think I deserve a raise and I want benefits. It can also be this turning point where you really feel like you need to be in a situation when it comes to your finances or your romantic life that you feel valued, that you feel wanted, that somebody is claiming you. Be careful with the square to Pluto in your 5th house. Don't let old heartbreak be something that lowers your self-esteem. Don't look around and go, well, nobody wants me, so am I not valuable? That's not the direction you want to go with this. Realize the sun's in your 8th house, and Aries 8th house for you is where you're changing and transforming how you use your energy and how you interact with other people. Maybe you're just learning to go through issues that you've had with just vulnerability and being willing to share where you've been hurt in the past, so that way you can go deeper into relationships in general. It's crazy because this card jumped out for you, the sun, which is saying, yes, the sun, talk about the sun. It's highlighting the ego, and Aries doesn't jive well with Virgo, right? You guys, they quincunx each other, those two signs. So Aries brings this kind of like primal, sometimes angry, frustrated, reactionary side out in you, and you're like, whoa, where is this coming from? And I feel like it's about you finally like stepping up and kind of being like, no, I need to be more defensive of my energy and who I share my energy with, and I know my worth, and I'm not going to be treated like I'm just an option, or that somebody can just take it or leave it. So the sun's a positive card, confidence, sunshine, truth, and really kind of becoming aware of your talents and letting it shine, and being like, I know what I'm worth. That's so important, and not allowing other people to bring you down, especially heartbreak. We got Libra and Libra rising. You got a full moon in your 1st house. So this is your moon, Libra. You have been setting intentions since fall of last year. Think about what you were setting in motion or really manifesting September, October of 2021. It's an interesting time when you have a full moon in your 1st house, because there is this sometimes like a glow up. There's a change with your appearance. Maybe you're feeling very emotional, especially if you're a Libra rising. This can also be with the opposition to the sun in your 7th house and the square to Pluto in your 4th. Ouch. Similar to Cancer and Aries, I'm going to tell you, be very careful, watch your words. I think that you can be a little bit more emotional than usual, a little bit more reactionary. I know with the sun going through your 7th house, you're redefining your relationships with other people to find more balance in your own life. And there can be this feeling, since Pluto is in your 4th house, that there's been something toxic going on for you emotionally within your family, within your domestic zone. Maybe you feel like the house is a mess. Maybe you feel like the house is like breaking down, or something needs to change and transform when it comes to where you're living, or just your emotional patterns in general. And Pluto in the 4th is about releasing and letting go of pain or toxicity. Now, what can happen with this full moon, because it's making an opposition to the sun in the 7th, is that there's like a blow up fight that happens at home with a family member or a spouse or a partner or a roommate. With the square to Pluto, it's likely somebody who's visiting the house that instigates it and creates the conflict. So watch for that. It can be family oriented. It can also be your family that creates problems with a partner or vice versa. And I would just say be very careful, because this makes me feel like, especially for Libra risings, if you've been having a lot of issues with domestic issues in the family where you've been living or not feeling at peace in your home, like this is just going to keep coming up until you're like, okay, something needs to change or I'm going to leave. I'm really pleased to see that the Ace of Cups jumped out, because I do feel across the board for everybody that this Pluto square is for us to basically take the trash out of our life and go, this stinks, we're not doing this anymore, this has got to go. So that's great. But for the Ace of Cups to be coming up, Libra, it's saying new opportunities in love, filling your own cup, feeling good, the opportunity to like reconnect and like add a little bit more love. So it's positive stuff when it comes to that stuff. Having a full moon in your ascendant, maybe it can be bringing more love to you, especially if you're like, that's it, I'm finally letting go of these old patterns. I'm ready to let love in, but it's an emotional awakening and it's putting more emphasis on intimacy and deeper feelings and dealing with new emotions that you don't know how to navigate yet. So the good news is that if you add some love and a little bit more, things can get easier. But I'm still going to tell you, be careful during this new moon. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, this is a full moon happening in your natal 12th house, which is where energies wrap up, they finish, it's hidden, it's psychic, it's psychological, it's behind the scenes. So Libra being your 12th house is what your partner is or is not telling you, what they're thinking about or what they're feeling or experiencing behind the scenes. It can be about them being stressed out. It's squaring Pluto in your natal 3rd house. Pluto is your chart ruler. So I'm looking at, you know, the full moon being in your 12th and your 6th house square Pluto. It's almost like your partner's stressed out. They don't know how to communicate with you. Maybe you feel it. You don't know how to handle the situation. Be very careful, because you're likely to be the instigator, because Pluto rules your chart. And there can be something that you say that comes off the wrong way with the square from the full moon. There can also be a sense of like a lot of movement, a lot of things are changing with the routine. You're having to drive around and like create, you know, wrap up a lot of like tasks. There could be people visiting with that Pluto in the 3rd house that kind of creates a little bit of chaos. It can be a conversation that you have with your partner that you didn't see coming, and like the way that you react to it is everything. And being that the sun is in your 6th house in Aries, it's a lot of like your routine and what you need. And there can be more of an emphasis in like trying to consider other people and how you respond and how you communicate with them, because how you communicate with them is everything this month. I would say the same thing to the other fixed signs, but just coming off the heels of the full moon, Mercury and Uranus are going to align in your 7th house of relationships and marriage, which tells me that right after the full moon, you can have a conversation with a romantic partner and you're going to be like stunned about something that they said to you, and it's going to throw you off and it's going to freak you out a little bit, because it can affect whether or not you keep living together, whether or not they stay in the house, whether or not they're happy. So you've been warned. Then the card that jumped out was the Hangman. So this is also talking about Neptune and the fact that Neptune and Jupiter are aligning in your 5th house of romance. So in a way, there is this really stressful energy that's kind of building, and it's like a lot of things that are building because of stuff that isn't being said. But this is talking about waiting and seeing, like reflecting, taking a second before you make a decision, counting to 10, taking a deep breath before you say anything, pausing, letting go, surrendering. It can also just be like a moment where you're like, I really feel like if I say anything, it's not going to go over very well. So I'm just going to wait. Waiting a couple days after the full moon before like engaging and talking about things can be smarter. Contemplation, self-sacrifice. So there can also be like a sense of you having conversations about what you've been sacrificing, but a partner might be feeling the same way. Okay. For Sag and Sag rising, this is taking place. This full moon is in your natal 11th house. So it's about fun, celebration, friends. It's opposing the sun in the 5th house, and it's squaring Pluto in the 2nd. Wowzers. It's a lot of like I want to go out and have a good time. I want to have fun. I don't want to break the bank. You know, a lot of Sag and Sag risings have been focusing on building up their self-esteem, saving money, you know, really hitting their financial goals. There can be this feeling with the square from the moon that's like, do I have the resources to buy my friend a nice gift, to go out and have a good time, to join the party? There can also be this feeling of like sorting and sifting through friendships right now and asking yourself if there are certain items that or friendships that you're willing to get rid of or give away. So there can be like you going through stuff being like, I have all these extra things. Let me find a friend who can take it because I have too much. That's a great way to use the energy. Gifting something nice to somebody if you don't feel like you have the money to spend. I feel like this is going to be possibly a little bit of like you feeling wounded if you don't feel valued by certain friendships, because the full moon happening in your 11th house, square Pluto, and also the sun in the 5th is like you being like, wait, like, why didn't I get invited to the party? Or, you know, why isn't my best friend like prioritizing me? So there can be something out of whack in terms of feeling secure in certain friendships. Be mindful of anything that has to do with like sacrificing your personal values or your personal beliefs, or even maybe even your time for people who you feel like aren't really stepping up to the plate and are being good friends to begin with. That's something that can definitely be coming up for you. Watch out for self-esteem issues, because this full moon can do that. And if you are experiencing a situation where you're letting go of a romantic partner, or you've met somebody but it's just not panning out, don't take it personally if that person doesn't meet your standards, or if you have to cut somebody off because you're like, no, it's not good enough. The Star card, I like this, healing, right? And it's also talking to you about Aquarius right now. So I know Sag, you've got Saturn in your 3rd. It's trying to get you to just really focus on communicating, expressing, writing, journaling, sharing your feelings. Lean on Saturn as you go through these transits. It's going to help you talk it out and communicate. But this is kind of the calm after the storm. So for the most part, I think like a full moon, you've got a lot of air and fire, so it does positively aspect your chart. You're not going to feel the pinch as much as most people. And I think maybe this is just about you holding space for friends who you feel like are sharing your same common goals and coming together with people who also want to help others. For Capricorn and Cap rising, well, this is a full moon in your 10th house of career. It's in opposition to the sun that's currently in your 4th house of home, and it's squaring Pluto in your 1st house, and you are hell on wheels. So take a chill pill, relax. It looks to me like you're getting very stressed out about some situations that are panning out possibly at work, and you're feeling torn between your family and your emotional or your home obligations, and just literally how much energy you can put out. The good news is a full moon in your 10th house is likely to bring you a lot of recognition. So like if you've been really busting your butt, trying to get a new job, trying to get a raise, trying to get a new title, it could actually very well happen, especially because it's going to trine Saturn in your 2nd house. So if you've been doing the work, you're going to get the recognition. The one thing I would say, though, is because Pluto is in your sign and it's squaring the moon in your 10th house and it's squaring your 4th house, there can be this sense of like maybe you're at home, you're visiting family. There's more emphasis on your home and your domestic zone right now, or moving or what have you. And a big job opportunity comes up, but you're like, I'm taking care of grandma, right? These kinds of things can happen. So you just may be at home or out of town or visiting family when this comes about. There can be lots of just parenting responsibilities in general, whether you are a parent or you're taking care of a parent. That's not unusual with the 4th, 10th house axis. And I think it's about how you're learning to change your feelings when it comes to like really dealing with your home life and realizing it can't all be about work, that if you're kind of feeling like you're really going through it, you need to bring your attention also back down to your home and your family zone for right now. Watch for just you being reactionary. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been going through these transits since December. Something's changing and transforming in terms of how you treat yourself and relate to yourself. You can't burn the candle at both ends and put yourself in a situation where you're so focused on goals and success and all of these things that you're willing to put yourself, your body, your health, your emotional health, your family on the back burner. You can't do it. Pace yourself. You've got lots of positive transits that are going to be coming pretty soon in Aries, which is more like, where do I want to live? Am I expanding my family? Am I buying a new place? So try to be appreciative of the new emotional shifts that are coming, even if that means it takes away a little bit from work. So enjoy this moon while you can. I get the Page of Cups. So I feel like it's you feeling good and feeling that people are really receptive to what you're putting out there. You might really be in your feelings. You're feeling some emotions. There's a lot changing. I'm wondering if this is about just you establishing a better or a healthier relationship with yourself or with younger people. This can be about children, inner child, curiosity, the beginning or the blossoming of new relationships. So new relationships with family members or at home or what have you. This makes me feel very optimistic for you, Capricorn. It makes me feel like a younger person or a water sign or somebody comes in who's like nurturing and says like, it's okay to not have all the answers. Like, don't worry, you're still growing, you're still learning. So be patient with yourself and remain hopeful. You've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising, and you've got a full moon and a sister sign, Libra, in your natal 9th house. So this is relatively positive for you, you and also Gemini. So one thing that I would say, Aquarius, is that it is happening in your natal 9th house. So there can be completions of faraway trips, travel, legal stuff, publishing, courses, applying for schools, all of this stuff. Being that it's Libra, it makes me wonder if there's like a legal situation going on with a partnership where you're legally committing to somebody, starting a business with somebody, getting married, getting divorced, these things. And also just changes and tests in how you view relationships and the overall lessons in relationships. It is squaring Pluto in your 12th house. And that is a bit of a difficult energy because it tells me that you may be going through it behind the scenes and emotionally a little anxious and kind of feeling like you don't really know how to deal with this energy. And the best way to handle it is to just kind of hide out. Now, the 9th and the 12th house are associated with higher education, spirituality, gurus, mentors, getting associated with a religion or a belief system, and it's about spirituality. So what I love about this is it makes me feel like if you are going through a difficult time, talking to somebody who can help you find the path and get clear guidance can be amazing, whether that's a counselor, a therapist, a mentor, a psychic, whatever. What I'm not crazy about is the fact that Pluto in your 12th house is squaring this axis, and it can have you just really worried about certain situations and feeling a little frantic or up at night and not knowing how to settle down and obsessively working behind the scenes and like overdoing it, right? You literally could be overdoing it, overworking behind the scenes. Relax, take your time, especially if you have deadlines or other things that you have to make, all in due time. The card that I get for you is the 6 of Wands. So this is about being well received, accomplishing something, being victorious, you know, having everything kind of come together. But once again, it isn't all in due time type energy. So this says success, public recognition, triumph, pride, rewards. So you're going towards that. That's your goal. But I'm going to tell you that a lot more of this stuff is going to start coming together for you very clearly in a different way, right? Saturn's in your sign in your 1st house. North node Uranus is in your 4th house. South node Scorpio is in your 10th. It's not all about career. If career success comes, great. It's more about freedom, personal success, defining who you are in the world, and also figuring out what direction you're going in. If you're going home, visiting home, traveling home, buying homes, things like that, you're going to be well received. Family's going to be supportive. I think that's positive. The eclipses are talking a lot about the emphasis being on family changes and home changes soon. So if you're talking to people about visiting them or these things coming, it looks like it's going to go very well. As will your other projects. And last but not least, we have Pisces and Pisces rising. You've got a full moon happening in your 8th house, Libra. It's opposing Sun in your 2nd. So there's this theme of like your resources versus other people's resources. And it's squaring Pluto in your 11th house. Couple things I could see here. It's a lot of like defining the difference between a sexual relationship and a friendship. There can be a sense of really needing to get ahead of your goals when it comes to bringing in resources from others and the fact that you need more. Pisces, you can be a little stressed out about your taxes, meeting tax deadlines, especially seeing the full moon in your 8th house of like, I need somebody to help me sort through my money, organize things, you know, file my taxes, get it done. I need a new accountant. Or there can just be this realization that there's some sweet and salty things going on. A full moon in the 8th house brings out all the skeletons in the closet. The sun's in the 2nd. So it makes me feel like you do owe something. You need to pay a bill, you're handling tax or debt situation, or you need to pay a loan. Because it's squaring the Pluto in the 11th house, it could literally be taxes to the government. It could be money that you owe a friend. There can be this intense feeling of like just a lot changing with friendships or your relationships in general with money, and realizing that, you know, your goals when it comes to your long-term career security are getting stronger. So there in turn, you're like, you know what, I actually need to invest a little bit into my business to be able to bring more in the long term. So there's a lot of like looking at the give and take and what you could make versus what you would owe people. I also feel inclined to tell you the fact that all these planets in Pisces are on your ascendant makes me feel like you can go through some of these changes with a lot of grace and a lot of patience. You know, full moons in the 8th house, very similar to the energy that we saw for Virgo. There can be this feeling of changes, transformations, death, endings, like letting go. So there is a need for you to focus on that, but it's more about you letting go of this feeling that you have to figure out all of the finances. It's how can you make your money work for you? How can you work with people who are going to help you make money? Maybe you give them a cut, but it ends up kind of getting you ahead financially in the long run. Keep leaning on all those planets that you've got in your personal sign. I think it's going to give you a lot of grace, a lot of patience. I think it's going to help you move through this. And I'm also very excited because I know that financial blessings are on the way for you, Pisces. You're going to see that in the next couple of months when Mars and Jupiter go into your 2nd house, Aries. But right now it's becoming aware of what's not working and dealing with anything that's scary when it comes to just resources in general. The card that I get is the Knight of Swords. So it's a message. It's an email. It's a conversation. It's somebody who comes in very quickly, who can do something very quickly. If you're in need of assistance, if you're in need of a rescue, somebody filing, dealing with a document for you, it looks like that can happen. Watch your words, because there can be a sense of like rushing in and speaking too soon or saying something too soon and acting kind of brashly. There can also be an air sign that comes into your life that helps you in some way. So this is about ambition, fast thinking, being a perfectionist, focused, and like really goal oriented. So maybe it's also like a lot of telling people, hi, this is everything that I need to get done. Please get it done and I'll pay you to do it. Okay, thanks. Something about this makes me feel like if you're in need of help, reach out, ask for help. Somebody can show up and they can help you get the job done. All right, guys, hopefully this is helpful for you. Let me know, where's the full moon happening in your horoscope? Once again, remember, it's in Libra. We're not actually going to see the full moon hit until closer to the 16th. So you got some time. That's why I wanted to put it out early, but you're going to feel it all week long. Start looking at your relationships, looking at the balance, asking yourself where Pluto is, where that kind of, where Pluto's stirring the pot. I don't want to talk badly about Pluto. He's going to come for me. But you know, look at something that's scary and look very specifically at Capricorn in your chart, or reflect on what's happened over the last couple of months, because it's time to put that situation to rest. Okay, so there's changes coming. Hopefully you guys like this. Leave me a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to book a reading with me, check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Would love to see you. Eclipses are coming up, so if you're a Taurus, if you're a Gemini, if you're a Cancer, if you want to get a reading, get one on the books. I would love to speak with you soon. Otherwise, please guys, take care, enjoy the full moon, and have a great week.